All right, what we are going to do is take a look at introduction paragraphs so that you guys can get a sense for what goes into an introduction paragraph and what I'm looking for when you write one. Now, this document, which I will share with you once we have all the annotations on it, so you'll not only have this video, but you'll also have a copy of the document to look at in Schoology as well. At the bottom of the document, you see down here the elements that I'm looking for in an intro paragraph. So you can just see introduction elements, and there are 5 of them. And what we have, just so you know what the goal is, what we're looking for, we are looking for an introduction paragraph that is fully developed in a way that begins with a broad statement about the general topic of the paper. So the first thing we're going to do is highlight that in a specific color. So let's pick green. Why not? So we're going to say broad statement about the general topic of the paper. Okay? Then the next step of the introduction is that it will narrow down into how that topic functions in literature. So we're going to do red, or I guess it's pink, how that topic functions in literature. And you'll see we're going to go from general topic to that topic in literature. Now, our sample essay that we decided to write was about The Lion King. So I'm going to be writing about The Lion King, obviously as a film and not a work of literature. You all are writing about A Man for All Seasons. So you're going to refer to it either as a play or a drama or a work of literature. You are not going to call it a book. Book is far too broad. There are billions of books in the world. They can be fiction, they can be nonfiction, they can be published, or they can be un. We want to be as specific as possible when we write. And that is a rule to apply in all writing that you do. Always be specific. So because you are writing about A Man for All Seasons, you want to either use the term play or drama. Okay? Those are the 2 types of literature that we're going to be using. After we narrow down to how that topic functions in literature, which is still pretty general, we're going to get even more specific, and we are going to talk about the particular literary work that this essay is going to address. So now we're going from literature to a literary work. And you'll see that every step of the way, we are making use of this term narrows. So we start general, and then we narrow down, and then we narrow another step. And then this 4th step in here, this is kind of an optional step. It depends on the topic that you're discussing. So the example that I give on the 5 elements here is that, for instance, if you were writing about a particular symbol, let's say that you, for this particular essay, are selected the water prompt, and you're going to write about water. You want to make sure that in the introduction paragraph you have narrowed down to water specifically and not just to all symbolism. If you are writing about whether or not Moore is portrayed as heroic or melodramatic, your general topic might be character types or tropes or common character roles, common roles in theater and literature. But the specific one that you're addressing in that essay is the tragic figure and the melodramatic figure. So you would narrow down to those 2 things. So sometimes you don't need to do that narrowing, and sometimes you do. And this is one of those times when you as the writer also have to be the thinker and ask yourself the question, have I narrowed enough? And you'll see an example of that in the introduction paragraph that we're going to look at here in a second, I think. Okay, so the broad function. So this one isn't a step. This is just the broad function of the introduction paragraph is introducing the reader to the ideas you plan to discuss. So lots of times students think that the introduction is just there to tell me who is the author, what is the title, and what is the thesis statement. But what you are really introducing your reader to is all of the core ideas of your essay. Obviously, in order to do that, you as writers need to understand what the core ideas of your essay are. And that's really going to become clear to me in the introduction paragraph, whether you have thought about those things or not. I think a lot of times there's a temptation to look at an introduction paragraph and say, oh, it's just the intro, it doesn't really matter, it's not hard, it's just a series of steps. It doesn't have to be hard, but it does need to be complete. It does need to demonstrate an understanding of your topic. It does need to prepare me, the reader, for what to expect from the essay. So let's take a look at this sample and put some concrete structure to those abstract qualities that I went down here at the bottom. Okay? All right, so we're going to start as per normal with our lovely MLA heading, always something to have. And you want to make sure that in that MLA heading, you have it double spaced. You have your name, my name, and Mr. Dawson's name. Technically, that should be alphabetical, but if I have an opportunity to put myself first, I'm going to take it. The name of the course, and then the date. Now, I do want to draw your attention to the title, because Ainsley was talking about this. We were kind of joking about this last week as to how important the title is. Some teachers find the title to be very important. Some teachers will grade the title. Some teachers are, really, really enjoy titles as a part of the essay. Your title is not a part of your grade in this class. And my rule that I give students is that if you spend longer than 1 minute thinking of a title, you're thinking too much. I want your mental energy to go into the arguments and the evidence and the explanation and analysis of your essay. I don't want your mental energy to go into coming up with a title. If one pops into your head as you are writing, put it in there. If you think of one after you're done doing your essay, put it in there. But do not spend your time and mental energy coming up with a title. Have your mom or dad or a big brother or sister read your essay and ask them what they would title it and put that in there. It is just not significant. You aren't publishing this work. Nobody needs to distinguish it from anything else. It doesn't need a title. They're fun if you can think of them, if you can, come up with something catchy or snappy quick, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. So I chose the title The Vile King just because I was playing on the title The Lion King. But obviously the Lion King refers to Simba, and this paper, as you know, is about Scar. So I didn't want to call him the Lion King, I wanted to call him the Vile King. And this title does a few different things. If you're going to have a title, you want it to be a purposeful title. And that happens when you give the reader a clue about the essay's topic. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog whining in the background. I don't know what she's whining about. And give some direction, okay? So I know that this essay is going to be about something vile, which you might have noticed is the same root as the word villain or villainous. So let's take a look at the sentences themselves and see how they correspond to the elements that we have listed at the bottom. The very first sentence reads, struggle brings meaning to life. One of the things I want to point out to you is that a short sentence is a strong sentence. Lots of times, students want to write long, complicated sentences. You're used to reading long, complicated sentences in some of the work you read for school, and so you kind of tend to think, oh, a long sentence shows off how smart I am. I can show Mrs. Turner or Mr. Dawson or whoever my teacher is that I can think through a series of ideas and string them together. That's a wonderful thing to want to show us. But where you really see understanding is when somebody can be succinct, when somebody can use as few words as possible. Because the fewer words it takes you to explain an idea, the better your understanding of that idea is. And when people read short sentences, they pay attention to every single word. It is a powerful way to open. It's attention grabbing. And that's exactly what you want your first sentence to be. You want the first sentence to grab the reader's attention. You want it to be strong. You don't want it to be a sentence that is so long and complicated that the reader is lost before they're halfway through. You want them to know immediately, what is the broad topic of my essay? So just like we had our light green highlighting down below, we're going to put that up here. And so we were looking for the broad statement about the general topic. So struggle is pretty broad. And in this sentence, what I want you to notice is that in the word life, we have not qualified whose life. We have not yet qualified if we're writing about literature or reality. This sentence is so broad. Struggle brings meaning to life. We might be writing an essay about Buddhism. We might be writing an essay about, the struggles of surviving COVID. We might be writing an essay about, Leia's struggles down on the rug and why she's whining at me right now. It's so broad, we don't know. But it is a powerful sentence because it is short and it's using meaningful words that make us think. That phrase, struggle brings meaning to life, that's an evocative sentence. It's one that the reader wants to think about, maybe argue against, or maybe support. It's one that provokes thought. And that's what you want to do for your reader. You want to provoke thought in their minds. So now, when I read this sentence, the unspoken question, when I as a reader see struggle brings meaning to life, my unspoken question is, how? So I'm going to have to get a little bit more narrow. And in that next sentence, that is exactly what happens. Without forces to oppose, without challenges to overcome, life becomes a meaningless succession of petty events. So what I want you to see is that I got a little bit more specific. Instead of just struggle, I'm narrowing down, and I've got forces to oppose and challenges to overcome. So that idea of struggle has become more specific. I'm defining what struggle means: a force to oppose, a challenge to overcome. But I'm also keeping the same ideas of my very first sentence. I have meaning, and here in this sentence, a meaningless succession of petty events. I'm making the point of the first sentence with more complexity. Struggle brings meaning to life. Without forces to oppose, without challenges to overcome, life becomes a meaningless succession of petty events. I'm explaining how the first sentence is true. These two sentences are linked by their ideas. Every sentence that you write in your essay should flow logically from the sentence before it and to the sentence after it. So I'm keeping the ideas. You can trace them with those colors. You can see the same ideas are relevant in each sentence or are present in each sentence. Okay, now I'm going to need to get even more specific because forces in opposition and challenges to overcome, those can still be about a billion different things. Like, am I talking about war? Am I talking about poverty? Am I talking about, knife fights on the street? What in the world am I talking about? I need to get more specific. Common sources of struggle, like illness, time, or poverty, provide ordinary people with the antagonistic forces that give their lives shape. So we're going to go, and I'm going to go from there, go to the darker green. Oh wait, I chose the wrong tool. Sorry guys, bear with me here. So now I'm going to go illness, time, poverty, and antagonistic forces. So I'm giving you specific forces to oppose. Here are some things that might specifically oppose you. Here are those challenges. Okay. So more specific. Each time the color gets darker, we're getting more specific. Okay. So the antagonistic forces right here, I'm now using language that is used not usually when we're talking about life, but more when we're talking about literature or film. I'm moving out of life in general into life in specific, the specific lives and struggles that we see in literature. Now, where are those blue ideas, that same like general topic of the essay that we see throughout? Well, here we go. Give their lives shape. It's that same idea of meaning. Okay, so we have those ideas carried through. The next sentence reads, but extraordinary people, the people about whom films center, require extraordinary antagonists. Okay, now you might be saying to me, Mrs. Turner, we were told never to start a sentence with but. That is a no-no. Okay, you can do it once a paper. Okay, if you start every sentence with but, then you sound like you're reading a protest list. But if you do it only occasionally, it adds emphasis. So we're going to say once a paper for emphasis. Okay? It's all right. Okay, so when I have in the previous sentence, I've used the phrase ordinary people, life in general. We're going to get into more specifics. Extraordinary people. And where do we meet those extraordinary people? We meet those extraordinary people in literature, whether we are talking about films or books or television shows. Those extraordinary people for this particular essay is how we get down to literature. So if you were writing about the play, you might say extraordinary people, the people about whom plays center, but here we're going into literature in general. So that's what I'm going to put over here in the side. Okay. And I know that to get more specific, somewhere in my introduction paragraph, I'm going to need to have the title of this specific work. But again, this sentence is doing more than just narrowing. It is also continuing to develop the idea. So now instead of antagonistic forces, I'm going even darker. I'm going extraordinary antagonists. I ran out of green, so I went to gray. Okay, so antagonistic forces. Why do I keep doing that? And we have extraordinary antagonists. Well, what in the world is extraordinary antagonist? Don't worry, it's coming up. In fact, they require something more. The they refers back up to extraordinary people. They require villains. Okay, let's use purple. Not what I want us to do. Let me draw my arrow, and then let me highlight. And we're getting even more specific so that you can trace those arrows from topic to topic, and you get more specific each time until finally we're down to villains, which connects back to our vile king, right? I know this document is looking quite messy, but just bear with me. Writing strong essays takes a lot of thought, and putting that thought on paper can get a little messy. This is what my brain is doing when I'm writing, and it's what your brain is going to do when you write too. Hopefully you're not going into a color coding panic attack. If you are, set up a Google Meet, we'll chat through it, you'll be fine. Okay, so now we're down to villains. When what I want to show my reader is that I, as the writer, am drawing a distinction between antagonists and villains. If you remember, the prompt said, is Scar a villain or is he an antagonist? And because that's the question posed by the prompt, I want to show that I understand the prompt by using both terms in the introduction. And by doing so, I'm setting up the definitions of the paper. I'm making sure that anybody who reads this essay about Scar being a villain understands the context of the word villain in this essay and exactly what I mean by a villain. So now we're going to get more specific as to what a villain is. Armed with nefarious plots and a willingness to engage in dastardly deeds, villains take their antagonism into the realm of evil. So what is a villain? A villain is somebody who is nefarious in their plotting, engaging in dastardly deeds, and evil. So those are the terms that came out of the definitions we used in the prompt, and they're the terms that you want to define for the scope of the essay. So I'm going to put a little note here that says define terms. Give the essay context / a framework. Now, I used a lot of fun words in that sentence, like nefarious and dastardly. Please do not look synonyms up. I know those words, so I'm going to use them. I teach a lot of Shakespeare, and you can't do that without learning the words nefarious and dastardly. Use words that you know. The thesaurus is a great tool, but just because a word pops up in the thesaurus box as a synonym does not mean that it makes sense in the sentence you're going to write. If you see a word in that synonym box and you have never heard it used or read it in your life, don't use it, because the risk is that you are going to use that word wrong and out of context. That you may take a word that is 99% of the time used in conversation about the military and apply it instead to the church. And I, as a reader, am going to go, why in the world are you using that word there? That sounds weird. And you don't want me to worry about the weirdness of your words. You want me to think about the quality of your ideas. So if you know a word in the synonym list, you've heard it used, you've seen it used, go ahead and use it. You know, I like to think of a thesaurus as a tool that helps you remember words that you already know, not a tool that helps you find new words that you don't know yet. Right? That's the safest way to use it. Okay, so I've defined villains. I've told you what the villain is: nefarious plots, dastardly deeds, evil. And I'm drawing this distinction between the antagonist and the villain. So antagonism, the ordinary antagonistic forces, and I'm saying villains are something different, and I've defined what that something different is. In the next sentence I've written, to be memorable, to stand out in a way that gives the hero's life meaning. Oh my God, someone stop me now. I should lose my teaching license. Look at this, you guys. This is horrible writing. What a teachable moment. Okay, this right here is plural. Hero's life. Ugh, terrible. We need to make it singular. So instead of this word, we should have HERO apostrophe S. The life belongs to the hero. The hero's life. Oh, now I feel so much better. We've corrected that. So I want you there to see, hey, even an English teacher can make mistakes. This is why it's important to always go back over your work. Sounds the same, whether I say the heroes apostrophe S or multiple heroes. We've got to figure out which one makes sense. Singular, possessive. To be memorable, to stand out in a way that gives the hero's life meaning. Oh, there's that phrase that we should be highlighting blue again. A villain must be truly bad. Okay. Again, that what is a villain? Disney, in this instance, for this paper that we're talking about here, Disney is the author. When people talk about Disney films, they say Walt Disney's Disney's The Lion King, Disney's Cinderella. Yes, there are individual writers who develop the screenplay, but they do not individually own the copyright on those screenplays. Disney owns it. Disney is the author. Disney, aware that a hero needs a villain to bring him the struggle, created a particularly compelling one with the Lion King's vicious, usurping uncle, Scar. Now, isn't that the most fun sentence ever? Vicious usurping uncle. It sounds so exciting. So, we have here, let's see, narrowing down to the particular literary work. We've done that right here, The Lion King. And we have narrowed down from villains to Scar. So that's kind of what we see here, narrows as far as necessary to the topic. We didn't just stop at villains, we stopped with Scar. What particular villain are we going to talk about? We also haven't given up that bring meaning thing. A hero needs a villain to bring him the struggle. And what villain are we talking about specifically? We're talking about Scar. Then I get into the thesis statement. This is the one that we took from writing together in class last week, whatever day that was. And we have the evil intentions behind Scar's actions establish that he is not merely the antagonist of the story, but also its villain. So that idea of evil that we've had earlier in the essay, it's going to show up again here. Oops, wrong color. Let's do, must be this one. Evil intentions. He is not merely the antagonist, but the villain. Okay? So everything in this introduction is built on establishing the context and the framework of the paper. Every sentence builds out of the sentence that came before it. That's what you're looking for. This paragraph, as you can see, is, roughly half a page. You don't really want to write an introduction any longer than that. You don't want to spend all of your time or all of your words on the intro, but you need to give enough of a framework that you've developed the ideas and really introduced your reader to what your essay is about. So remember, as you guys are writing your own introduction paragraphs, remember your 5 elements down here, these things, because that's where you're going to see, that's what you're going to be evaluated on. When I score your introduction paragraphs, I'm looking for these steps. Okay? You should definitely have 4 of them. This one here is kind of depends on the essay, depends on how far you need to narrow. So step 1 is the general topic. Step 2, how do we see that topic in literature? Step 3, the particular literary work. Step 4, narrow it down as much as you need to. And then, what is your idea? What is your thesis? Make sure you end with your thesis statement. That is the appropriate place for it to go. Okay, so I hope that this lesson teaches you everything that you need to know about introduction paragraphs. I'm going to post it, and I'll post this document as well without the commentary all over it, so you guys can kind of have a clean copy to work with. And I will see you in class tomorrow. And if you have any questions, I can take questions then. I'm going to put the deadline for this on Schoology as well. I believe I have it for Tuesday at midnight, and that's what it's going to stay. But again, I can answer questions about that tomorrow.